we are actually dealing with a pathocracy. Definition of pathocracy: a system of government created by a small pathological minority that takes control over a society of normal people. Pathocracy, Greek from pathos, feeling, pain, suffering, and kratos, rule. A totalitarian form of government in which absolute political power is held by a psychopathic elite, and their effect on the people is such that the entire society is ruled and motivated by purely pathological values. Pathocracy can take many forms and can insinuate itself covertly into any seemingly just system or ideology. Think about that. Think about like Black Lives Matter. Seemingly just, yes.
Seems like a good cause.
But then you have these psychopaths who insinuate themselves covertly into these movements, into these ideologies. As such, it can masquerade under the guise of a democracy or theocracy, as well as more openly oppressive regimes. Characteristics, I'll just give you a couple. Suppression of individualism. That's the big one. You have to have individualism if you want to have freedom. Suppression of individualism and creativity. Impoverishment of artistic values. See China, see more oppressive communist regimes. Impoverishment of moral values. A social structure based on self-interest and one-upmanship rather than altruism. Fanatical ideology, often a corrupted form of a valid, viable Trojan ideology, which is perverted into a pathological form, bearing little resemblance to the substance of the original. Intolerance and suspicion of anyone who is different or who disagrees with the state. Centralized control, widespread corruption. All the institutions seem pretty screwed up these days, do they not? Because they've been corrupted. They are corrupt. Secret activities within government, but surveillance of the general population. Paranoid and reactionary government, excessive, arbitrary, unfair, and inflexible legislation. The power of decision-making is reduced, removed from the citizens' everyday lives. Centralization of power, and into our case, D.C. rather than states, counties, and municipalities. An attitude of hypocrisy and contempt demonstrated by the actions of the ruling class toward the ideals they claim to follow and towards the citizens they claim to represent. When I think of that, pops up in my mind all these times that they've been caught not wearing a mask. When Nancy Pelosi was caught not wearing a mask, when she went to get her hair blown out, she didn't have to wear a mask. Gretchen Whitmer didn't have to wear a mask at a dinner. Gavin Newsom didn't have to wear a mask at a dinner. So on and so forth. They break their own edicts. It shows their absolute hypocrisy, which means they don't take what they say to the public when they put these edicts into action. They're full of it. Here, endemic use of corrupted psychological reasoning such as paranormalisms, conversive thinking, and double talk, ruled by force and or fear of force. People are considered as a resource to be exploited. Spiritual life is restricted to inflexible and indoctrinate schemes. Anyone attempting to go beyond these boundaries is considered a heretic or insane, and therefore dangerous. Arbitrary divisions in the population, class, ethnicity, creed are inflamed into conflict with one another. And of course, suppression of speech, debate, demonstration, protest. Well, they get to decide what a protest is and isn't, what a demonstration is or isn't, what a riot is or isn't. Violation of basic human rights, for example, restriction or denial of basic life necessities such as food, water, shelter, blah, 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 blah. In the most extreme cases, but of course it says here torture and abuse, slave labor. Yeah, so that's what we actually live in. I just found this out the other day. I just found this, never heard of it before, but I think we are living in a pathocracy. And that this is what is really behind every other ism. Even if they come across in their original form as good, as well-meaning, as meaning to make life fair and abundant for everybody, are always hijacked. All these ists and isms end up being, however well-meaning, in their original form, are hijacked. They are perverted. They are distorted by these psychopaths and sociopaths who are in society, and they crave power and control, and they're like leeches. They're parasitic, and they create parasitic thinking, thought forms that take control and spread into the mass consciousness of society, and they create, it's a basic divide and rule strategy, and we have to realize that that's the people running things. And for anybody who thinks that's what happens when you have government, because they always end up being corrupted. Human beings are flawed. And when you say, well, the government is the people, a lot of the time it ends up being total psychopaths. Crazy people.